World War II, lasting from 1939 to 1945, was a global conflict that brought unprecedented destruction and loss of life. It was the deadliest war in human history, with an estimated 70 to 85 million fatalities. The war involved the vast majority of the world's nations, including all of the great powers. Ultimately, it resulted in the Allied victory over the Axis powers, forever changing the course of history. The sheer scale of World War II was unlike anything seen before. From the beaches of Normandy to the jungles of Southeast Asia, battles raged across multiple continents. The war touched the lives of millions, drawing civilians and soldiers alike into its devastating vortex. The conflict left an indelible mark on the world, shaping the geopolitical landscape for decades to come. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, officially ended World War I. This treaty was meant to bring lasting peace and stability to Europe, but it also sowed the seeds for future conflict. However, it also created conditions that made another war more likely. The harsh terms imposed on Germany were seen as punitive rather than reconciliatory. Germany, held responsible for the war, faced harsh punishments that crippled its economy and fueled resentment among its population. The economic hardships were severe, leading to hyperinflation and widespread poverty. The treaty's stipulations, including the loss of territory, strict limits on its military and heavy reparations payments, were seen as deeply unfair by many Germans. These measures not only humiliated the nation, but also left it vulnerable and weakened. This resentment created fertile ground for extremist ideologies like fascism to take root. The political landscape in Germany became increasingly volatile, with extremist groups gaining more support. The Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler, capitalized on the widespread anger and economic hardship. Hitler's rhetoric resonated with many Germans who felt betrayed and abandoned by the international community. Hitler promised to restore German pride, overturn the Treaty of Versailles, and create a powerful German empire. His vision of a resurgent Germany appealed to those who longed for a return to national greatness. At the same time, militarism was on the rise in Japan and Italy. Both nations sought to expand their influence and power through aggressive military strategies. Japan, seeking to expand its influence in Asia, adopted an increasingly aggressive foreign policy. The Japanese military's actions in Manchuria and other parts of Asia were clear indicators of their expansionist ambitions. Italy, under Benito Mussolini, embraced fascism and sought to revive the glories of the Roman Empire. Mussolini's vision of a new Roman Empire inspired many Italians to support his regime. These expansionist ambitions further destabilized the international order. The aggressive actions of Japan and Italy threatened the fragile peace that had been established after World War I. The global economic depression of the 1930s exacerbated these tensions. The economic downturn affected countries worldwide, leading to widespread financial instability. The depression led to widespread unemployment, poverty, and social unrest, creating an environment where extremist movements could flourish. Desperate populations were more likely to support radical solutions and leaders who promised quick fixes. As countries struggled to cope with the economic crisis, they turned inward, undermining international cooperation and making conflict more likely. Nationalistic policies took precedence over collaborative efforts, further isolating nations and setting the stage for another devastating conflict. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, marking the beginning of World War II in Europe. This invasion was not just a simple military maneuver. It was a calculated and aggressive move that set the stage for a global conflict that would last for 6 long years. The invasion, employing Hitler's blitzkrieg tactics, was swift and brutal. Blitzkrieg, or lightning war, was designed to create disarray and confusion among the enemy forces, making it difficult for them to mount a coordinated defense. Blitzkrieg, meaning lightning war, involved rapid coordinated attacks using tanks, aircraft and infantry, overwhelming the enemy before they could react. This strategy relied heavily on speed and surprise, aiming to break through enemy lines and encircle them, cutting off their supplies and reinforcements. Poland, despite fierce resistance, was quickly overrun. The Polish forces fought valiantly, but they were no match for the well-coordinated and technologically superior German military. The fall of Poland was a devastating blow, not just to the Polish people, but to the entire world, as it signaled the beginning of a new and terrifying era of warfare. France and Great Britain, honouring their treaty obligations to Poland, declared war on Germany 2 days later. This declaration marked the official start of World War II, as nations around the globe began to choose sides and prepare for the coming conflict. However, the initial phase of the war in Western Europe was characterized by a period of relative inactivity, known as the Phony War. During this time, both sides fortified their positions and prepared for the battles to come, but there was little actual fighting. This lull in the conflict was deceptive, as it gave the impression that the war might be resolved without further bloodshed. In 1940, Germany launched a series of lightning offensives, conquering Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium and France in rapid succession. These swift victories demonstrated the effectiveness of blitzkrieg tactics and left the world in awe of the German military's prowess. The fall of France in June 1940 was a major turning point, leaving Great Britain to stand alone against the Nazi war machine. The French defeat was a shock to the Allies, as France had been considered one of the strongest military powers in Europe. The Battle of Britain, a protracted air campaign, followed, with the Royal Air Force successfully repelling the Luftwaffe's attempts to gain air superiority over Britain. This battle was crucial, as control of the skies was essential for any potential German invasion of the British Isles. The bravery and skill of the RAF pilots became legendary, and their success provided a much-needed morale boost for the Allied forces. In June 1941, Hitler broke the non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union and launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history. This ambitious campaign aimed to conquer the vast territories of the Soviet Union and secure its resources for the German war effort. The German army, initially successful, was eventually bogged down by fierce Soviet resistance, harsh weather conditions, and logistical problems. The vast distances and the determined Soviet defense made it difficult for the Germans to maintain their momentum. The Eastern Front became a grinding war of attrition, claiming millions of lives on both sides. The brutal conditions and the sheer scale of the conflict made it one of the most devastating theatres of war in history. The battles fought here would shape the course of the war and have lasting repercussions for the entire world. While war raged in Europe, the conflict was not confined to the Western Front alone. Japan continued its expansionist policies in Asia. Seeking to secure resources and establish dominance in the region, Japan aggressively pursued territorial gains, often at the expense of neighboring countries. Japan launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, on December 7, 1941. The attack, meticulously planned and executed, which killed over 2,400 Americans and sank or damaged numerous battleships, was a devastating blow to the United States Navy. This act of aggression drew the United States into World War II. The Pacific War was characterized by fierce naval battles, island-hopping campaigns, and relentless air assaults. The fighting was brutal, often taking place in dense jungle terrain where the environment itself became an adversary. Japan, initially on the offensive, achieved a string of victories, capturing key territories and establishing strongholds across Southeast Asia and the Pacific. However, the United States, leveraging its industrial might and vast resources, began to mount a formidable counter-offensive. American forces, with their superior production capabilities, were able to outpace Japanese efforts, producing ships, planes, and weapons at an unprecedented rate. Gradually, the tide of the war began to turn. Key battles in the Pacific included the Battle of Midway, a pivotal encounter that resulted in a decisive American victory, crippling the Japanese fleet and shifting the balance of naval power. Another significant battle was the Battle of Iwo Jima, a costly and grueling conflict that showcased the ferocity of Japanese resistance. The island's strategic importance made it a critical objective for American forces. As the war progressed, American forces pushed closer to the Japanese mainland, capturing islands like Okinawa after bloody and protracted battles. The Battle of Okinawa was one of the bloodiest in the Pacific, with heavy casualties on both sides. On August 6, 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan, unleashing unprecedented destruction. This was followed by a second atomic bomb on Nagasaki on August 9th. The bombings, which killed hundreds of thousands of people instantly and left a legacy of radiation sickness and environmental devastation, remain the only use of nuclear weapons in warfare. The sheer scale of the devastation and the threat of further atomic attacks forced Japan to reconsider its position. Faced with overwhelming force and the prospect of continued atomic bombings, Japan surrendered to the Allies on August 15, 1945, bringing an end to the hostilities. The surrender marked the conclusion of World War II, a conflict that had reshaped the world order. The war's end brought relief, but also ushered in a new era of geopolitical tensions, setting the stage for the Cold War. The legacy of the conflict, from Pearl Harbor to Hiroshima, continues to influence global politics and military strategy to this day.